Hey guys, Zack Mars here, and this is my review of Danny Phantom. Okay, so this episode, Frightmare, is, well, it's actually the last episode to introduce a new ghost antagonist, since after this point, it's all people we've seen before, and people we know. So, this episode does introduce a new ghost antagonist, and the last one, but he's pretty powerful, he's pretty cool, and I do like talking about it, like him, very much as a design. I remember this being one of the few, when this show was airing, I remember this being one of the few episodes I saw from Season 3, because I unfortunately did not catch many episodes from Season 3. Like it aired when I just got off school, and I didn't never ever know what it was on, so this was one of the few that I saw when Season 3 was airing. So, But yeah, I do remember this one fondly, and it still holds up to this day. It's a fun one. But, it's fun because it introduces a villain. This one obviously sets up a, well, we'll get to that, but it sets up an interesting thing regarding Sam and Danny's relationship, as it were. Like, it does establish that, there's more going on behind the scenes with them. But in case getting into the review, the episode opens up with Danny at lunch at school, and he sees Dash and Tucker, with Dash seemingly looming over Tucker, and believing Dash is going to give Tucker a bit of a handful. He then immediately goes up to confront Dash and tells him to leave him alone, only for Dash to reveal that he's actually been saving Danny's seat for him and wondering where he's been, which of course confuses Danny very profusely, but of course he ultimately decides to go with it and sits down. At which point we find out a little bit more about what's going on. Well, specifically, but we find out that the reason Dash and Danny are friends, or at least according to Dash, is because according to Dash, Danny is one of the best football people that they've ever had. He's one of the worst quarterbacks ever, and he scored the winning touchdown on their last game, which of course catches Danny a little bit off guard because he doesn't remember actually playing football, which obviously confuses the hell out of him. But it's of course at this point where as Danny is kind of trying to wrap his head around the fact that he's good at football, suddenly the Fright Night appears, and it's at this point where Dash tells Danny to deal with it. And of course, Danny has no idea what Dash is talking about, wondering why exactly he would ask Danny of all people to deal with it. But it's then revealed at this point that all of Casper High, and this is the part where it kind of implies that something else is going on. It's revealed that Danny's secret is out, and everybody knows he's a superhero, which Danny had never previously revealed until now, or at least not in a permanent way. So that's a big red flag that something isn't quite what it seems. But in case, Danny, with the support of his classmates, then proceeds to turn into his ghost mode and proceeds to valiantly beat back the Fright Night and sends him packing back to the ghost zone. And this of course causes everybody to start celebrating when Danny gets back. And of course Dash proceeds to remark that Danny basically has it made. All the girls want to be with him. He points out that obviously Danny's a star athlete, and overall just points out that everything is essentially going Danny's way. Everybody knows he's a superhero. He's overall it's a very great for him overall. But Danny of course admits that while he's happy that all the girls are fawning over him, he does admit that there's only one girl for him. At which point we see Sam walk up wearing his Letterman's jacket, and it's at this point where she asks if he has room for his girlfriend, and he does proceed to move over, and it's at this point where they're about to share a kiss when suddenly Danny wakes up and he is in the ghost zone. He's in his ghost mode. He was wearing a strange helmet that he doesn't remember putting on, and is overall very confused as to what's happening. And of course, realizing first and foremost that he needs to get out of the ghost zone and figure out what's going on, he first and foremost heads out of the portal, but quickly discovers that he doesn't really have any memories of how he got there. Very faded memories. He doesn't fully understand, but he remembers fighting some sort of ghost. We don't see the ghost right away, but of course, at this point where Danny proceeds to try and figure out what's going on. And first thing he does is immediately check on his parents, who are also wearing the strange helmet that Danny was wearing. And Danny, of course, is very visibly confused, but then reaches out to try and touch it and winds up shocking himself by accident. And Danny is of course very visibly shocked and points out that literally he's shocked both in an emotional sense and in a physical sense. But he's a little bit visibly shocked to discover that they're wearing some sort of helmet, and points out that that's a helmet that could very easily put a princess to sleep. And it's at this point where he remembers Jazz is a thing and goes to check on her and accidentally, again, electrocutes himself. But realizing his family is asleep, and not really understanding what's going on, he starts poking. He decides that the best way to solve the problem is to go upstairs and look at the security tapes. So he uses his ghost mode to go upstairs and look around, and he eventually discovers an army of ghosts invading his house while they're asleep, and of course, they're all these weird little green ghosts. But he does remark that it seems like we're a sign of breaking and entering, or as he puts it, phasing and entering. But does wonder where exactly these green ghosts come from, and points out that maybe Tucker will have some sort of clue. At which point he goes to Tucker's house and discovers that yes, she is asleep. He is very much asleep as well, and realizing that it's likely the whole town is asleep, he does decide to check Tucker's security cameras as well, because Tucker is used tech to kind of track his room and track everybody who's sleeping. And what Danny discovers is a mysterious ghost that he can't quite get. But Danny discovers is a mysterious ghost that he can't quite get a track of. And looking closer at, he points out that it's better than nothing, and does realize that he needs to figure out what sort of mastermind would actually put the entire town to sleep. So of course this immediate suspect is Vlad, who as both the mayor of Amity Park and the main antagonist of the series, would obviously be a great candidate for this kind of thing. But when he goes to Vlad's manor in the wealthy part of town, he quickly discovers that Vlad is asleep as well, with the same helmet, and now very visibly confused and wondering who exactly it was that could possibly have pulled this sort of thing on him. And wondering who could possibly benefit from taking out Vlad of all people. Then it's at this point where Danny winds up getting attacked by the same green ghost he saw before, and they proceed to grab him and pull him against the wall. At which point he's greeted by a mysterious new ghost named Nocturn, and Danny immediately recognizes Nocturn, because he recognizes that Nocturn is the villain who attacked him in the ghost zone and put him to sleep. We see a brief memory of him fighting Nocturn, and of course we find out that Nocturn eventually used his ghost powers to knock Danny out and transferred him to the ghost zone where he can't cause any problems. And by this point, Nocturn has dragged Danny down into Vlad's secret lab and is planning to send him back to the ghost zone, claiming that Zanny is not going to be able to defeat him, pointing out that he is the king of dreams, and that ultimately his end goal is to keep the entire town asleep so that he can draw energy from their dreams forever and become essentially all powerful. And this of course causes Danny to realize point out that Nocturn's plan ultimately isn't going to work, and that he will do everything he can to stop him. At which point he uses his ice powers to break free of the restraints Nocturne has trapped him in, and proceeds to try and battle Nocturne, but quickly discovers that it's an uphill battle, because not only is Nocturne very powerful, but because he's harvesting the dreams from everybody in town, he is able to summon the little green ghosts, which he refers to as his sleepwalkers, and essentially can just summon an army of them forever. And it does point out that he can do this all day so long as everybody's asleep, with Danny pointing out that so can he. At which point he continues to fight back against the sleepwalkers, and eventually he manages to use his ghost powers to knock out Nocturne, and he eventually uses his ghost powers to freeze Nocturne solid and destroys him. And realizing Nocturne is now completely out of the picture, or at least for now, he decides to set out work to figure out how to wake up his friends so he can find a permanent way to stop Nocturne. But meanwhile, Nocturne recovers very quickly after Danny leaves, and concluding that this will not stop him, he proceeds to claim that once he goes back to his hideout and is fully recovered, he will once again be all powerful and will be able to take on Danny no problem. But for the time being, he makes a strategic retreat. But it is at this point where Danny now needs to figure out how to wake his friends up so they can successfully beat Nocturn and take out and stop all the sleepwalkers from trapping people in their dreams and keeping them asleep. So of course, the first person he visits is Tucker, who's obviously asleep, and Danny proceeds to rack his brain to try and figure out how to wake him up. And what Danny remembers is that what ultimately woke him up was something that shocked him in his dream. And remembering that he and Sam almost kissed in the dream, he realized that would likely do it. And now realizing he needs to do the same for Tucker, he decides that the best way to do that is to overshadow Tucker and go inside his dream to wake him up. And so Danny does that. And what we discover is that Tucker in his dream is a successful tech billionaire with he also has two stars. He has Star, but she's like she's twins now. And of course Danny is visibly impressed by Tucker's dream, pointing out that Tucker has style even when he's sleeping, and does point out that everything about it is very fancy. But his mood then takes a notably sour turn when he discovers that in Tucker's dream, Danny is the janitor, which of course pisses Danny off, and that's ultimately how he shocks Tucker awake. He proceeds to confront Tucker about it, and just snaps Tucker awake once he realizes that Danny is not happy about being the janitor. And of course Tucker is very visibly confused as to what happens. But of course, Danny just points out that they're in danger and that he needs Tucker to wake up. But also then proceeds to remark that he doesn't do windows, and then he takes Tucker to go do another stop. And the next person they go and visit is Sam, who is obviously asleep as well. And Tucker, keeping with what Danny has been doing, accidentally shocks himself on Sam's helmet, which Danny then proceeds to remark he should have warned him about that. But ultimately Danny tells Tucker to stay put while he goes inside Sam's dream to wake her up. But when he does that, he quickly discovers that he and Sam had the exact same dream, exact, right down to the fact that he and Sam were boyfriend and girlfriend in their dreams. And Danny is overjoyed when he finds this out and accidentally knocks over a table in the dream, which causes Sam to wonder how there are two Dannys when she actually sees him. And it's at this point where Danny, in an effort to wake Sam up, then in spirits Dash in the dream and uses his ghost abilities to make Dash go ghost, which obviously snaps Sam awake. And she's obviously very visibly confused as to what happened. But of course, it's at this point where she and Danny share a moment when they discover that they realize that they have the same dream, but ultimately deciding that it's not really worth going into right now because they still have one more stop to make. They then go back to Danny's house where Danny prepares to wake up Jazz, and does ask Sam if she's ready for her sister to be woken up, and of course Sam proceeds to point out that yes, it's fine, pointing out that they'll need more the merrier, pointing out that if there's 4 of them, they'll more than be able to handle whatever Nocturn's trying to throw at them. But of course, this is this point where Danny goes into Jazz's dream. We don't see Jazz's dream. We do get a description of what happened, but we don't see it. And so this point where of course Tucker proceeds to ask Sam what was in her dream, and Sam proceeds to tease him, pointing out that what she saw, that what was in her dream was essentially what the dream Tucker had, which of course causes Tucker to become embarrassed because obviously he knows that Danny told Sam, and is a little visibly embarrassed that Danny brought it up. But it's any case at this point where Jazz proceeds to jolt awake, and it's revealed that she was a Yale professor and was also married to Dash. And of course it is at this point where Danny points out that Dash has just been coming in handy today. He admits that Dash has actually the poster child for nightmares, which Of course, causes Sam and causes both with Sam and Danny to kind of once again have another moment before snapping out of it and explain to Jazz the situation, how they have a ghost named Nocturne that they need to deal with, and that they ultimately need to figure out where his hideout might possibly be. But and after racking their brains for a bit, they eventually conclude that Jazz ultimately concludes that they may have an idea of where to start. At which point they go to an abandoned mattress factory somewhere in Amity Park, which, of course, Danny points out makes perfect sense. Nocturne is the king of dreams. Obviously, he would go to a place that is sleep themed. So old mattress store. But it gets to this point where they go inside, but also making sure that everybody has the weapons they need to actually go and deal with Nocturne first. They do ultimately formulate a plan, which is to break in, capture Nocturne in the Fenton Thermos, and ultimately, hopefully, to take care of the sleepwalkers in the process. And after running through their game plan, they do wind up going inside, unaware that some sleepwalkers are watching them, and they just go inside to discover that Nocturne is in a giant dream machine. He is essentially he's essentially in a giant sci-fi birthing pod with an antenna on it, and essentially it's essentially a cloning pod, but Danny quickly realizing that Nocturne is huge and they're never going to be able to beat him, at least through conventional means, then notices the antenna and realizes that Nocturne is currently drawing the dream energy from everybody in town, which naturally Danny realizes is most likely going to make him all powerful once he wakes up. But it's at this point where Danny realizes that he actually has an idea, because he jogged his memory and remember that if they're going to take out Nocturne, they're going to need to figure out a way to wake him up. So it's at this point where Danny realizes that if he inspirits Nocturne the same way he inspirited everybody else, he can go into Nocturne's dream and jolt him awake. But Sam proceeds to tell Danny that it's too dangerous and that she is ultimately going with him, pointing out that he's going to need somebody to have his back. And of course, Danny realizing Sam is not going to take no for an answer, ultimately decides that yes, he'll take her with. But of course, it is at this point where he points out that he's never actually overshadowed anybody with a partner anymore before, and wonders if Sam is ready to do this. And Sam remarks that she is, and that she's more than happy to go with. But it's at this point where he proceeds to tell Jazz and Tucker that while they're inside of Nocturne's dream, that their main priority should be to knock out the satellite on a Nocturne sleep pod, pointing out that will ultimately put an end to the sleepwalkers and enable them to make it that much easier to defeat Nocturne. And after getting their orders, they do proceed to get ready to make their way to the satellite. While Danny and Sam proceed to go into Nocturne's dream. And what we discover is that Nocturne's dream is exactly what you would expect. An army of sleepwalkers having taken over the world, with him sitting high and mighty atop his tower. And Danny does remark that at least Nocturne has a vision, and points out that he's got to hand it to the guy for doing that. But it is ultimately at this point where Nocturne sees them inside the dream and teleports. And of course, Danny proceeds to wonder if Nocturne actually did indeed see them, at which point Nocturne proceeds to confront them and reveals that yes, he did. At which point, Sam and Danny proceed to fight for a bit, but Sam ultimately is able to suck him inside the Fenton Thermos. But and of course, both of them are initially confused, because while they do defeat Nocturne in the dream, they note that they're still in it, so they wonder what's going on. At which point it's revealed that Nocturne actually was not defeated. As it turns out, and this is implied from how he's established, but Nocturne as the ruler of all dreams, is in complete control of every dream, including his own, which means which means as long as he's drawing power from dreams, he cannot be defeated inside his own dream. And sure enough, he proceeds to summon an army of sleepwalkers within the dream to battle Sam and Danny and try to overwhelm them. Meanwhile, Tucker and Jazz are currently making their way to the satellite, when suddenly to the satellite on the roof, when suddenly they are attacked by sleepwalkers who try to separate Tucker and Jazz. And Tucker, having to work quickly, does ultimately not use his PDA, but use some other attack that he pulls out of his belly button. Just it's something we've never seen before, but definitely supposed to be reminiscent of his PDA or something else. Not sure, but he ultimately uses his not PDA to fully hack into the satellite before the sleepwalkers can reach him as well, and manages to shut it down. And once the satellite is shut down and he's cut off Nocturne's source of dreams, he then proceeds to leap over the balcony and grabs Jazz and tackles her into a pile of mattresses, saving both of them. And of course, the two of them just being happy that they're all right. While Sam points out that it's very lucky that they're in a mattress. Well, Tucker points out that it's very lucky they're in a mattress store. But ultimately, this does wind up having an effect on Nocturne's dream, because Nocturne ultimately loses his ability to summon sleepwalkers because of it. And now, without his armies, Nocturne starts shrinking in power very visibly inside his own dream. And now satisfied that Nocturne can be defeated, Danny Park says it seems like it's time for him to face reality and wake up. At which point they use the Fenton thermos to suck him his dream form inside of it. And now defeated within the dream, Nocturne proceeds to snap awake while Sam and Danny burst out of him after the inspirit is broken. And of course, declaring that he's still not defeated yet, he tries to use his dream powers to summon more sleepwalkers to defend him, but quickly discovers that because Tucker shut down his dream machine, unfortunately, he is unable to summon his sleepwalkers. With of course, Sam and Danny proceeding to point out that that's not going to work anymore, pointing out that now that they've disabled the satellite on top of his dream machine, everybody around town is waking up and he's slowly losing his power. And that means it's not, and now realizing that Nocturne is finished, they proceed to suck him inside the Fenton thermos and defeats him, which of course ends his threat to the Amity Park once and for all. And now, happy about the fact that they've successfully dealt with Nocturne, the four people from Danny's team then proceed to go outside and sit on the pier outside the mattress factory, and do reminisce about how even though Nocturne's been defeated, they wouldn't mind having their dreams again. Obviously, Jazz points out that she was happy to have been a Yale professor, and does point out that that's definitely something to strive for. While Tucker points out that yes, he understands that idea, pointing out that being a tech billionaire, obviously he points out is going to take some work, but he definitely loves technology, so he can definitely see that being something he can do growing up. Well, of course, Sam and Danny just proceed to share a moment again as they point out that they wouldn't mind but also pointing out that they're probably not going to tell anybody their dreams anytime soon, even though it's clear what their dream was. We know they had the same dream of them being boyfriend and girlfriend, which is interesting. But in case that the episode then ends as they watch the sunrise. So obviously Nocturne is like the final antagonist that they introduced throughout the series. Like, I've already established that. But he's a pretty powerful villain, and a great send-off for, the new antagonist that they set up going forward. Obviously, this guy was very powerful because he could use dreams to manipulate people and become all powerful. So, obviously, by using helmets to trap everybody in their dreams, he essentially was able to become powerful all the time, not just at night when everybody's asleep. So, overall, pretty cool villain. I do love his design a lot. Nocturne has a fun design because, because he's just a night sky with a head, and that's glorious. But, ultimately, I do like how this story ultimately sets up that, I like how ultimately it does set up that, yet again, Sam and Danny are going to be a couple. That is firmly established at this point. And does establish that, yes, they have started seeing each other that way because that's what happened in their dreams. And it is just interesting. Obviously, they started off from, being adamantly in denial about the fact that they were a couple because, they just happened to be a boy and a girl who hang out a lot. So, maybe we like each other. That's definitely something. And even though Nocturne was defeated, he was ultimately the person to kind of jar those feelings to the surface because, well, it has been building for a while now, it does make it clear that yes, that's how Sam and Danny see each other. They want to be a couple, they just haven't made it official yet. But in case, yeah, that's gonna do it for my review. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support the show. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out. And you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that everybody was saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Link is down in the description. And also be sure and go check out my Twitch. Link is down in the description as well. I stream Saturdays and Sundays. I would appreciate it if you were to go check those out. We'll probably be back normal schedule this weekend. We're going to be going on to, I don't know, whatever I wind up streaming. Definitely Harvest Stone for sure. But Sunday, I have no idea what I'm going to be streaming. But I do have some choices. But yeah, we're definitely going to be getting back in a normal schedule going forward. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. And also, yeah, be sure to go and check out my Patreon if you want to help support the show. Obviously, this was a big labor of love. I'm almost done with it, but it was a big labor of love, and I would appreciate it if you were to go support me over there. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. Well, check out the playlist linked in the end screen, but point still stands. Top video is the top video is the most top playlist is the most recent playlist that I've made. It was Megas Month, which what I did for Megas XLR and my own birthday, so please go check that out. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So, well, bottom playlist. It's Courage the Cowardly Dog themed. It's more themed around Halloween. Something I did 2 years ago. So please go check that out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.